Welcome everybody to Comparative Media CMST 510, the online version. I want to welcome both our graduate students in our inaugural graduate degree program. The MA is officially launching, you could say with this video. Right now, the MA program in communication is officially underway. So I want to welcome those students to the class. I also want to welcome our accelerated students to the class. Accelerated students are undergraduate students who have excelled in their field by virtue of their GPA, and that enables them to take up to one graduate class per semester in their senior year to then knock off time should they roll over and enroll into our graduate program. They get to count that class both as an undergraduate class and as a graduate class. It's 6 credits, so to speak, for the price of 3. So I want to welcome both audiences to this class. You know, when I was a kid, I had the opportunity to go to England with my parents. I was about 13. And we were sitting there watching television. I got really frustrated by the fact that all the TV shows didn't come on at the same time, which is to say like 7:30 in the evening. So I could decide, I want to skip this show. I've seen a couple minutes of it at 7:30. I don't like it. I'm going to move on to the next one. That's the way that I watch TV in the United States. Not that I watched a lot of TV, but that's the way I watched it. In England, I noticed that TV shows started at all different times, like 7:10 a show would start. And then on the next channel, a show was starting at 7:20 and then 7:40. And it confused me. It also threw my TV watching habits into a bit of a loop because I had to specifically research a show, right? And sort of devote and commit myself to watching that show, because if I didn't watch it, if I didn't continue watching it, then I wasn't going to watch another show because it was already underway, or the next show was going to start 10 minutes later, if you follow me there. So it was just one tiny example of how I realized that television is very different in other countries. And when we get later in this course, we'll explain why TV starts at those different times in England as well as other countries. But it was a very introductory example for me that media are different around the world. And it kind of led me down a path of studying media as I was traveling. I would go to France. I would go to Holland. I would go to visit friends in Sweden. And I would take a train, or I would take a bus, and I would pick up a newspaper and read a newspaper. And when I would arrive, I would listen to their radio, and then I would see what they were watching on television at night. And I started to become really accustomed to differences in media as you travel around. And that's what has led me into this field, and that's why I'm excited to teach this course. I actually started to study the field formally at Penn State University. I took a class very early on called Comparative Media Systems. And in that class, I learned that there is a whole body of research out there that describes these vast differences that we will see in media from around the world, and tries to explain the impact of those differences on our sensibilities and our knowledge base and the way that we conduct ourselves with others, and certainly the way that we perceive people from other countries, as we are doing right now with the immigration discussions going on and the wall, which is at the focus of our media right now. It's forcing us to harvest certain perceptions of people on the other side of the wall. And so this is what is happening constantly in our world, and it's why we need a course, I believe, called Comparative Media. In the rest of this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be discussing that course as it breaks down. We'll be going over the syllabus. We won't be looking at the syllabus in detail. That would be too inefficient of a task to do on a video. So that's part of an online class. You're going to be expected to do work where you're independent, right? That you're an independent learner. You don't necessarily need the professor in front of you to be learning in a graduate level online class. And we're going to do some of that today with how well you get to know the syllabus. So what I want to talk to you about now is how the field has changed to set up the context for this course. The field has changed a lot since I started studying it at Penn State University. And it's changed mostly because of the vast development of the internet, right? The internet has broken down those physical, conceptual, also boundaries that we have perceived to exist between some countries. So we would think that there's a very, very big difference. For example, between Americans and Canadians. We might think that 20 years ago, just because there's a boundary there, there's a wall there. Canadians end every sentence with saying, eh, right? But today, we have a very different situation. We still perceive that there are differences between Canadians and Americans, but that hard physical boundary is no longer as much of an impediment in differentiating between the two cultures because of the internet, because of social media, because of the way that we communicate electronically now. It's sort of diminished the importance of boundaries. So that's kind of changed also the way that media content is distributed. Media content used to be distributed. A TV company in the United States decides it wants to export a TV show to the United Kingdom, and that show can only be exported to one of a few TV channels over there that are willing to buy it. That's the way that media used to be. Today, because of the internet, because of streaming, because of podcasts, because of the ability to store TV content digitally, there are so many platforms that a TV show can be distributed on when it goes overseas that has also changed the way that the field has developed. So this is the back end of that change that we're studying in this class. We're going to be looking at how the field has become less boundary inclined when it looks at boundaries between countries and studying media systems, and more diffused in terms of technology spreading content around the world, not necessarily to countries, but to people who are able to access that content. I hope this makes some sense. We're going to be developing these themes as we get further into the course. This is a research course, and that means that we will be focusing most of our activity on learning what other people have studied, as well as developing our own study in this class, which you'll be doing in a final research paper at the end of the class. But for the most part, we are studying what the current research is on comparative media. So now to introduce, in essence, the format of the class and how it runs. It's a Tuesday-Thursday format. And the way things are going to work, I've already made one change. The way things are going to work is every Tuesday and every Thursday, starting at noon, you have a certain fixed time period to complete the assignments that are assigned on that Tuesday and that Thursday. The fixed time period is going to be 48 hours. Originally, I was going to make it noon, but I think it's going to be better for students if I allow 48 hours for the assignments that are due in this course. So every Tuesday at noon, you have 48 hours or until Thursday at noon to complete your assignments. Every Thursday at noon, you have 48 hours until Saturday at noon. I know that's a little bit strange, but it actually may come in handy for some of the working professionals in this class. You have Saturday at noon for a Thursday assignment. So you have 48 hours. And basically the way that the Tuesdays and the Thursdays run, the way that they run is on Thursdays. We have a Thursday coming up. That's going to be our next class. On Thursdays, you're going to be reading some chapter material that's from my original book called Comparing Media from Around the World. Now, I wrote that book in 2006. I've decided to put it out to pasture, so to speak, because the information in terms of the comparisons of the countries that I do in that book is no longer current. But what is still valuable in that book are the theoretical concepts that explain components of a media system. And that's what we're going to be looking at media through the lens of in this class, through the lens of media as a system in a class. When you look at media as a system, it has a bunch of different parts. And we look at those parts to try and study the whole of the media system. So those parts include, for example, how a media system is financed. It includes how a media system is regulated, how a media system is accessed. Those are three quick examples of system parts. So on that Thursday, you're going to be reading a piece of my book. I'm posting it on D2L, and it's just going to be that conceptual part. And then what you're going to do is you are going to apply that material in a post to a country that you're going to select, and you're going to study all semester long. You're going to study the media system for that particular country. Every person has to have a different country. And you're going to be able to sign up for a country right now on D2L where you can choose your country. You want it to be Italy, you can make it Italy. You want it to be Argentina, it can be Argentina. You want it to be Canada, it can be Canada as long as somebody else hasn't chosen it. So on those Thursdays, you're going to read that material from my book. You're going to make a post within 48 hours on your country using what we're talking about in the book and applying it to your country. You're going to go out and conduct your own research. More about that when we get to Thursday. And then also on Thursday, you're going to make a post on another book that I've written called RSC, or Rounding Some Corners. And that is a book that is a collection of columns that I have written to point out the ironies of oddball human behavior. And those ironies also teach us a lot about ourselves. And since I happen to be a professor of communication, many of my columns are on media. So you will be taking those column ideas and you will be expanding off of those in a post every single Thursday. More about that when we get to Thursday. So those are your Thursdays, okay? So Thursdays are my chapter material that you're reading and then applying to your country and making an RSC post, all within 48 hours. Those are your Thursdays. Tuesdays are different. Tuesdays, for the most part, you're going to have an article that a student is going to sign up for and present to the class. The student's going to go out, select that article. It's going to be an article in a refereed journal. There is a list of refereed journals that I'll be posting on D2L under the content tab. That list of refereed journals, you can go find the article, and then you're going to post it for the class, and then you're going to evaluate that, and you're also going to raise discussion questions. Then the rest of the students in the class are going to respond to your evaluation of the article by counter-arguing against you using evidence from the articles. So you've got the student presenting the article, raising discussion questions, evaluating the article, and then you have the rest of the students, in a way, responding to the original student's posts with critical eyes, with trying to counter-argue. This is the part of the give and take that's necessary in a graduate level class, is to debate ideas to sharpen our viewpoints. Even if we don't necessarily always believe strongly in the ideas that we're arguing, we need to be practiced in those arguments. So that's what that assignment's all about. So Thursdays is student article plus all of the students responding to the student's post on the article. Again, more about that before we get to next Tuesday. Okay, also in this class towards the end, we will have a research paper. That research paper is going to require you to compare the country that you've been studying all semester long with another country's media system as identified and researched by another student in the class. So you're going to write a 15-page paper at the end of the class for that. You are also going to make a video presentation on that paper to the rest of the class, and every student is going to respond to everybody else's video presentation. So these are the assignments that I've come up with for the class to try and make it a robust experience, making use of the online format as much as possible to create interaction between us all. Since it is a new course, I may need to make adjustments. I may need to scale some things back. I may need to ramp some other things up. I may need to make some changes. That's all part of what goes along with a brand new course. So please don't hesitate to give me your feedback. I do hope you enjoy the columns and rounding some corners. I just want to say as a side note, many of them are meant to be funny, particularly in pointing out some of the absurdities that we human beings engage in, especially with our media use. And I do hope that you feel free to have a chuckle at the end of the column if it makes you laugh. Okay, so now I want to wrap up this video by telling you what you should be doing for the next 48 hours. We do have a little bit different of a class because it's our first class. So for the next 48 hours, what you need to do, number one, is you need to go on to D2L and pick a country. Pick your country that you're going to be researching for the rest of the term. Next, you need to make sure that you have the book Rounding Some Corners. You can get that from the bookstore at ESU, or you can get it online. Amazon is the place that I see that sells it the most. So you need to have that for next class because you're going to need to be making a post on that. And then finally, what you need to do within 48 hours is you need to record a 2-minute introductory video that you post under the Discussions tab on D2L. And that introductory video is going to cover the questions that I've listed right there under the Discussions tab and basically show us who you are. Introduce yourself to the rest of the class so that we can start to get to know each other and have a collaborative learning experience. So that's it for me. I hope you have a wonderful first day to classes. And once again, welcome to Comparative Media.